Hello and welcome to You Are Intuitive, a series of refreshing conversations about developing and using intuition in the real world. I am Dana Mahachek, and today I'm thrilled to be speaking with Layla Saad. Layla is an incredibly inspiring and powerful writer, mentor, and healer for women doing their soul work and their soul's work. She helps women to more fully express and embody their truth, both in their personal lives and in their businesses. Layla's work explores womanhood, spirituality, creativity, business, personal power, and sacred activism. Layla's clients are women who crave a deeper connection to both their own soul and the soul of their business. She combines soul work tools such as divine feminine archetypes, menstrual and lunar cycles, mystic poetry, tarot and oracle cards, ritual, shadow work, sisterhood, and energy healing, with her experience as a coach, writer, and speaker to help women live and lead as the most powerful expression of their truest selves. Layla is deeply devoted to truth, the heroine's journey, divine feminine spirituality, words as medicine, and our individual and collective healing. I had the privilege of connecting with Layla shortly after her open letter to spiritual white women about white supremacy went viral online, and I know that you will enjoy hearing our conversation as much as I enjoyed sharing it with her. Thank you so much for being here. All right. Hi, Layla. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited.
We, even before I hit the record button, we've been chatting like old friends. And I'm so excited to continue this conversation, like the official version of this conversation. But mostly I'm thrilled and so interested and very eager to hear about your experiences with intuition and to just go as deep as possible into what it means to be intuitive and who can be intuitive and how intuition shows up in your daily life. So thank you again so much for being here.
I'm really excited because intuition is a huge part of my personal life, of my business life, and something that I really love talking about. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Have you always felt intuitive?
Yes.
Had to think about that.
Because I'm perfect. No. I have a mother who's we call her the witch of the family. She's highly intuitive. She would tell us when we were younger, don't do something that you're not supposed to do because I have eyes on the back of my head and I can see everything. And we would be like, what? And she would know. She would always know. And I think growing up with a mother who is so intuitive, she is clairvoyant. She is, so she sees, she is claircognizant. She just knows things without knowing why she knows them. And she'd always say things to me like, if you want to know what a person's really about when you speak to them, look straight into their eyes. And so I think growing up with a mother like that really formed kind of my outlook. But I would say I have become more aware of the word intuition and what that means more as an adult.
Yeah, and because I know from a lot of the people I've been speaking with, many people had, they were either highly sensitive or very empathic, or would receive intuitive insights and information, but not really know what that was and not have the tools to actually be able to do anything with that. And I think it's amazing and incredible that you actually had a role model for intuition in your life, that it was actually even a topic or even something that was informing your life as you grew up. Because I feel for example, in my experience, I was very sensitive, but my parents were teenagers, and they didn't know what intuition was. And I also came from a really strong religious background, and there was a sense that what I was feeling or what I was sensing was somehow bad or wrong, or that it wouldn't be, if I talked about it, it would be sinful. Was there any ever an experience of that in your own life growing up with intuition?
That's a really good question, because I also come from a very religious family, a very religious background. And so there wasn't talk of that, because that is such a part of who my mother is. But what has been really interesting for me as I've kind of been on this journey of like exploring the divine feminine, exploring what it means to be a witch, I'm like, oh my God, she's a real witch. She just, she jokes about it. I'm like, she actually is. And isn't that so interesting? Because she is also very religious. And so for her, the way she expresses herself, there's no kind of, this is bad and this is good. It's just how I am. This is how she is. But I can definitely see how that would be the case. I think the part where that happens is around, and this is something I feel like that not only happens in my religion, but also other kind of Abrahamic faiths, is this concept of like the evil eye or psychic attack. That's the point where I think it then begins to go into a lot of fear. So not becoming too intuitive, or not going too far into that kind of mystical realm, because there is a thing called psychic attack, or as we call it, the evil eye. And that's the part where it feels fearful. It doesn't feel good, which I understand, but yeah.
And I think with my experience, I love that you brought up this idea of a continuum, that like it's okay to be intuitive up to a point, but at a certain point you're crossing the line, or it becomes like black magic, or in my experience it would be that you're like trying to become God, like
right.
that you can't predict the future, and if you try to do that, you're a witch and that's bad. So there is that kind of spectrum of like, it's okay to maybe have a gut feeling about something.
Yes, right.
But then there's like oftentimes unspoken categories that would like qualify as like, but that's not okay.
Yeah. So for example, the tarot would be that for, not for me, but for people in my family. And it was for me for a long time, because I didn't know what the tarot was. And I was like, oh, that's the, Satan and the devil. Until I had my first tarot reading, and the friend who did it for me was telling me what came up. And I'm like, but she's just telling me what I already know.
Yeah.
So how can this be satanic? She's just telling me exactly what I already know to be true.
Yeah.
And that's when I got really curious, because I was like, this isn't a tool of predicting the future. This is a tool for tuning into intuition. And that's very much when I work with cards now. I work with them every day, because I want to know on a deeper level what I think and what I feel and what's coming up for me. But I don't do divination.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's very much a tool. It's very much a mirror.
Exactly. And when I'm pulling cards in my own practice, it's like a cosmic joke when I'll like pull the card and I'm like, oh, come on, right? Like, that's funny. Or like, that's funny, but I don't want to hear that joke. Part of me is like, why? I go, no. But then part of you is like, yeah, that actually is pretty funny. That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a continuum. And I think for myself, as I've been on this journey of kind of working more, as you said, on that continuum, going from gut feelings and just, you know, having a feeling to, okay, working with intuition more intentionally and using different tools. That's been really interesting for me. And I've noticed that the ways in which I really love working with my intuition are the cards, but also my dreams. And my dreams are very vivid, very sometimes mystical, but very intense. Like I'll wake up in the morning and I'll tell my husband my dreams, and he's like, "You must be exhausted. Like that's every time you sleep, this is what happens," you know? And I would have dreams like this when I was very young and think, you know, am I from a different world, or what is happening? And maybe I am, I don't know. But the way that I work with my dreams now is, okay, what are the what symbols and metaphors and aspects of myself am I being shown that I maybe can't access with my normal everyday waking self? I see dreams as very much the soul speaking to you. And the messages aren't always like, oh, that means that, you know, I don't take part in any like dream interpretation where someone else tells me. I really sit with the messages and let the different layers of meaning come to me over a period of days and weeks. And I look at what themes always come up, you know, and what does that mean on a bigger picture about things that are maybe core wounds, or just periods of my life and things that are coming up and how that relates to that. But it's not like we all dream. It's not like it's something that only I have. We all dream.
Yeah.
You know?
Even people who don't remember their dreams still dream.
Right. And so it's what I found is really helpful is looking at the ways in which us as individuals tend to receive messages. So for me, very vivid dreams, that's how it comes through. My husband doesn't hardly dreams at all. That's not how his intuition comes through. That doesn't mean he's not intuitive. It means he has his own way of hearing those messages.
And you bring up an amazing point there, that intuition isn't just this like one size fits all. If you can do this, this means you're intuitive. And if you can't, I'm sorry, you're not in the club, which is something I believed for a long time, that because I couldn't, you know, communicate with spirits, that it meant that I wasn't intuitive. So for you, it sounds like some of your primary intuitive languages are the dream work and the messages that come through with that, your card practice. Do you have other intentional or devotional practices or rituals that you do to consciously connect with your intuition and consciously kind of strengthen those muscles?
I have, and this is not me intentionally. So it's like, you know, with dreams, with cards, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit and I'm going to analyze this. I have messages that come to me through I guess you could say clairsentience. So I hear it in my inner ear.
Clairaudience?
Clairaudience, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to write it down immediately. And that's how I write. So all the poems that I write, most of the things that I write on Instagram or social media, a lot of the articles that I write come from that place. A string of sentences will start speaking themselves in my mind, and I need to write them down immediately and follow the thread of where they're going. And so my writing practice, I guess, is my intuitive practice, because I don't write to produce content.
No.
I write because I'm receiving information that needs to be put into words. And then sometimes those words are for me, but most of the times they're always for me, but they're for me first. And then because of what my purpose is, what my soul's work is, it's then for me to take that and to mold it into something that can be of service to everybody. So it's kind of different to my dream work and my card practice, because I can't ask for it to come.
No.
Yeah, it comes when it comes.
You probably tried to ask. I know I've tried, like, come on, I'm sitting here, I'm ready for the message.
I'm ready, got my fingers poised at the keyboard, and no. So, you know, I'll be half asleep, falling asleep, and then a string of sentences will start speaking, and I'm like, I need to write this down.
Do you keep a notebook beside your bed then? Phone, yeah.
The notes app on my phone is where so much of what I write begins. It's where all my poetry is written from, is that place. And there's something about writing on my phone that is very different to writing on the laptop. And I think it's because my friend Mickey DeVivo speaks about this. She's a poet and a writer, and she says, you know, when she writes on her phone, her brain is like, there's nothing important happening here. You know, you don't overthink it. Just, you know, the ego can just be like, nothing important happening here. It's just, you know, ordinary. Whereas when you sit down at the laptop, it's like, I've got to produce like a best-selling whatever.
Pulitzer Prize winning essay.
Exactly. So my ego gets bypassed by using my phone, and that's where my poetry gets written. Another way that I trick my ego is I won't write in a Word document.
Oh.
Because my brain thinks Word document, that means we're writing an essay at university.
That's going to be graded, and I should get an A.
Right. So I'll either write on the notes app on my laptop, on Evernote, or usually I'll just open a Google Doc, because a Google Doc is like, it's just a Google Doc.
It's like temporary, fleeting.
It doesn't matter. But I find that in recognizing what my own perfectionistic like tendencies can be like, if I can bypass those, then I can receive the information without a filter of these need to be like the best words ever. I can just receive and play and co-create and just really be like a good channel for both myself and for other people.
I love those suggestions, because I also experience I come from quite an academic background, and in school I was always like, what do I need to do to get an A on this?
Yeah.
And
I think we would have been best friends at school, because that was me. I would like hack the curriculum, like, okay, the curriculum says as long as I know this, that means I'm going to get an A.
Totally. And I would only even take classes where I knew that I could get an A. And, you know, looking back on it, I was like, there's so many topics I would have loved to explore, but I knew, or I thought I knew anyway, that I can't get an A in that. So I'm just not going to take interpretive dance class. I'll take art history instead, right? Like, I'll take this psychology course over this one, because I know that I'm better able to hack that. So I'm glad that you're bringing up these kind of like ego hacks, like, oh, just do it on your phone, right? Or just open it up a Google Doc instead of a Word doc, because to be a clear channel for something like that, you need to be clear. Like, you can't have the perfectionist tendencies coming in, or like needing it to be right, needing it to be like the best thing ever produced. So I love these little hints and suggestions that I'm now totally going to incorporate.
And I think, you know, speaking as a writer, but I think this is also relevant for anyone who's kind of receiving intuitive information. You have to know what your tendencies are so you can bypass them. And then you also have to really not compare yourself to other people. So I would not call myself a writer for a really long time, because I didn't have a writing practice in terms of how I thought a writer should have a writing practice. I don't have an everyday sit down at my laptop, write for a few hours, or write a certain number of words. That's not how I write. And so I would say I'm a writer, but feel like such a fraud saying it. And again, it was my friend Mickey who really helped me to see, no, you can actually do this. It doesn't matter as long as the words get put down, as long as you're producing something comes out. If that's the best way for you to work, then that's the best way for you to work, and that's okay. And giving myself that permission made things so much better. And so I say that both for anyone who is a writer who's listening, but also anyone who's like, receiving intuition has to look a certain way. It doesn't have to look a certain way. Maybe your intuition comes from painting or being out in nature. Maybe you're not like like we were joking about just before we got on the call, maybe you're not like an intergalactic emissary from, the Pleiades or whatever. Maybe you're just an ordinary human being like all of us, and your intuition comes when you are cooking and you just get an insight about something that you want to explore or something that you want to do. What I found is that if we can just, as you were trying to do with this series, really normalize what tuning into our intuition means, then we realize that we are receiving information all the time. All the time.
And we can't not receive. Like, if we are in human bodies, which have this energetic anatomy that always and inevitably and just can't not process that energetic data and the intuitive data, which is all around us all the time. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. And I wonder if we can talk a little bit more about that, about the comparison of like, I see this person and she's super galactic, or I see this person who's like writing this profoundly resonant prose. How do you kind of remove yourself from that, and how do you center yourself enough in your own essence and in your own presence to show up and be intuitive in your own way, or show up and be a writer in your own way?
I definitely think it's something that comes over time, and it's not to do with necessarily becoming a clearer channel, but more about the inner work of healing, of reclamation, of becoming more embodied in your body, grounded on this earth, here in this time, able to love yourself, able to have compassion for yourself. So things that are not necessarily about receiving intuitive downloads, but more about your journey, our individual journeys of like coming back home to ourselves. I think, I'm in a place now where I trust my art and I trust my voice. But if you'd asked me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said, I don't know what is my voice. I want to write like Danielle Laporte. That's what I want. If I can just figure out how to write like Danielle Laporte, then, everything will be amazing. And, there's only one Danielle Laporte. That's the thing. So I can't write like her. But my journey of really coming into relationship with myself, really being, speaking about this earlier today, and I was saying, we have like our human physical self that we can see, and then we have our higher self that I imagine kind of like standing behind us and is us, but is like bigger and knows and has our divine plan. And I was talking about cultivating this relationship with your higher self, where your higher self loves you unconditionally because she is you, right? But she loves you. She sees you. She sees your flaws, the ways that you mess up and make mistakes, and she still loves you. And for me, it's about, can I love myself like this me, the way that I know my higher self loves me? Right? Can I have that relationship with myself? And a lot of times on the spiritual journey, we talk about connecting to divine love, that there is this divine love and it's available to us, and there are angels around us and there are guides around us. And it's like, that's great, but that's still outside of me.
Yes.
Can I have this relationship with me? Where I am deeply in love with myself, where I can be deeply compassionate with myself, not from a place of narcissism or I'm better, any kind of superiority, but really like recognizing the miracle that you are, and recognizing this, It's like I see like the higher self as being this big mother and you being this child, and you having this relationship with yourself where you're both mother and child, and being able to give yourself exactly what you need as that mother, and then also being able to give yourself the permission to play and to be creative and to make mistakes without making yourself wrong about it. And so I know this is a very long explanation, but
I love it. I'm enraptured.
But if you can cultivate and be in devotion to this practice of cultivating. So it's not okay, I made it now, like me and my higher self, we're like there and I don't need to work on that. It's a daily practice. It's a daily nurturing, tending of this relationship. I find that when that has happened for me, when I committed to that when I then began to receive intuitive information, I was actually more likely to follow through on it than if I didn't, because I didn't trust myself.
Yes.
Right? So when we begin to cultivate this relationship with ourselves, we build our self-compassion and our self-trust, that when information comes and it's like, what? Like, you want me to do what? You know, that we have the self-trust that we know this isn't random. This isn't, this is true. This is something that I'm being guided to do, and I don't need to have the whole picture of how it's going to work out. And with my business with Wild Mystic Woman, everything that I've created with Wild Mystic Woman has been these individual breadcrumbs that have just been given to me. Oh, you should start a website called Wild Mystic Woman, just as a personal blog, to just talk about your spiritual journey. Okay, I'm going to do that. Okay, the website's here. What next? Oh, you should run a women's circle. I've never run a women's circle. You should just do it anyway. You'll figure it out. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'll do it. Okay, next breadcrumbs. You should start a podcast. Why do you want me to start a podcast? You don't need to know the whole thing. Okay, trust me, just do it.
Yeah.
You know, okay, I do it. And so I am deeply devoted to listening to that inner voice and trusting that inner voice, and having, you know, I'm talking now from like an entrepreneurial point of view, but my business strategy is literally my intuition.
Yes.
You know, I don't have a business strategy that's like a 1-year plan. I don't even have a 3-month plan. I have my intuition, and that's how I roll. And it has, in me giving myself permission to follow that, I can see the difference between this business now, Wild Mystic Woman, and the business I used to have, where it was very much about what's my plan for the year? What are my top like milestones I need to hit? Like, that was not serving me. No. And I realized it wasn't serving me when I started off the year last year with a bunch of like, okay, these are my 5 big goals for the year. And about 4 months into the year, I had achieved them all. And I didn't feel the way that I thought I was going to feel.
And you're like, something's got to change.
Something's got to change. And then some other things started happening. And I realized all of these amazing things that are happening weren't even in my plan. They weren't even in my plan.
It gives me goosebumps to hear that, right? Yeah.
Right? Not even in my plan. And so, you know, last year I wrote a blog post that went viral. It took me on this amazing journey that led me to starting Wild Mystic Woman. Last week, I wrote another blog post that went viral. Yes. Again, not in my plan, but it's then taking me on this rocket ride. That's how it feels like right now. Where I'm changing things very quickly. And it's very much my intuition that told me, write this article. I didn't have a plan to write it, but it was like I was dragged. Sit down, you need to write this article. And the journey that this is now taking me on is like, wow.
Couldn't have planned. Yeah.
Couldn't have planned, you know, there's no way you can engineer it. And so my business strategy is like 100% my intuition.
Well, and just speaking to that too, because I remember seeing on Instagram your post of like, I was going to release my podcast, like my next podcast episode today, but I think I'm going to write this article instead. Like, I just feel like I need to do something. So like, sorry for all the people who are like waiting for the next podcast. Yeah. But like, I'm going to do something else instead. And just seeing just the velocity and the intensity and the speed with which that blew up the internet.
Yeah.
was so awesome, especially because like in the mind, it was like, oh, it's Tuesday or whatever day. It's the day that I'm supposed to release my next podcast episode.
Yeah.
And choosing to listen to your intuition and to just kind of follow those feelings instead brings you to places you couldn't have even you couldn't have imagined. Like you say, you couldn't have engineered at all.
No. And that's why, you know, we really need to trust that voice, because there is always a bigger plan. Like we have our plan, and, you know, we have to have a plan because we're here in the 3D world and things work in a linear fashion. So there's things that I plan, but there's always a bigger plan. And, you know, I remember messaging my friend who I'd interviewed for that podcast. I was like, is it okay with you? Would you mind if I just not publish our episode today because I'm just really feeling called to write? And she said, yeah, no problem. And I said, I'll publish it next week. And it's next week. And I have because I didn't know what would happen in 7 days time. And so I have like a whole other bunch of, you know, I just yesterday brought 2 people onto my team. I've been a one-woman show for 3 years. I had no plans at any time this year to bring on any people, let alone 2 people.
On the same day.
On the same day, but that's what's coming up. So I guess the message really is here about just how incredible our intuition is. Like your intuition isn't something disconnected from you that comes from the ethers to you. It's part of your divine plan, like your unique soul contract here. And the more you listen to it, the more you learn to listen to it, the easier the messages come through, the more amazing the ride is. And I, you know, once you start really tuning in, it's really hard to disconnect from it.
Yes. Yeah. And I know there's times for me personally where I might not like the insights that are coming through, or like they might, I might experience some resistance to them, or I might experience fear around them, or I might just be like, that sounds crazy. I don't feel like doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm still connected to it. Like I can't turn it off, right? Like it's on. Yeah. And in retrospect, I feel that it always was on. It's just that earlier I was more, I guess, more stubborn, or more just entrenched in a certain way of doing things. And once I kind of eased up on that and just started experimenting with taking action on whatever insights I was receiving, and kind of running my own kind of lab or experiment where I'm like, I'm just going to test this out in this little small domain, do something that, you know, won't be earth shattering, and just see how it turns out. Yeah. And then over time being like, okay, well, that actually turned out pretty good following that. And then just choosing again and again and again to trust that, and to take action. To take the action. That's the most important part. It's not necessarily about receiving it. Like, I think we get so attached to, I want to receive it, and I want it to be like this momentous thing where a voice booms from the sky and speak. It doesn't come through that way. But the most important part is actually trusting that that's true and taking the action. And what I've noticed is that the more often we begin to do this, the more our higher self is like, okay, you can handle that, then you can handle something bigger. And you can handle something bigger. Mm-hmm. So I see, for example, the difference between when I wrote that article last year and when I've written it this year. It's that in terms of reach, it's 10 times the reach of last year. Getting goosebumps again with that.
Right? It's 10 times the reach. Mm-hmm. And last year when it happened, it was such a momentous, huge, like incredible thing for me. I was like, I didn't know what to do with it. And now this year when it's happened again, I remember when it happened last year, I was like, that's a fluke. It's a one-time thing. That can never happen again, right? And it's happened again. And I'm like, oh, this isn't a fluke this time. This is my higher self telling me your purpose is to write. Yeah. That's what your purpose is, that when you write, this is what happens. But I don't think I could have accepted this volume, this like reach that I have this year if I hadn't gone and done it on a smaller scale last year.
It's like having the capacity and a large enough container to hold whatever the repercussions of what you put out there.
Yeah. Because when it happened last year, I freaked out and like retreated inside of myself and was getting so many requests for interviews and collaborations. And it was amazing. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to have like been wanting to happen. And yet I find myself drawing within and not wanting to do that. And that was like, it's in own initiation of itself. But when it's happened this year, I've had friends who've checked in with me, having been with me last time and saw how I reacted, messaging me and asking, are you okay? Are you okay with everything that's happening? And I'm like, surprisingly, yes. Like, surprisingly, I'm like, okay, it's incredible and like, whoa. And I still feel very, very much like, of course this is happening because my purpose is to write. Mm-hmm. And it's time. This is a message. This isn't about how many people read it. This is about the divine, my higher self saying to me, and now you're ready.
Yeah. And what I've noticed just witnessing this recent journey of yours with this viral post is the self-care and is the like commitment to ensuring that your container can hold, that your vessel can actually hold everything that's coming in and through. Can you speak a little bit about self-care and how to be that vessel, how to expand your capacity to receive without blowing up or without like retreating and frying into a crisp of a person?
That is what would happen if I didn't take care of myself. Last year's experience was a huge learning lesson for me around boundaries and around energy. And last year I hadn't been on the journey that I've been on, so I didn't know anything about energy. I didn't know how to protect myself or to take care of myself. I didn't know. But because of that journey, I then had to learn that. I had to learn that when you put yourself out in a big way like that, everyone wants you and they want more of you and they want you to give more and more and more. And then that takes away from you. If you're not filling your cup back up. And if you don't know how to have like really good boundaries. And another thing that I witnessed happening in both times is that people, and I think this is a human nature thing, we have a tendency to put people on a pedestal. And it makes me deeply uncomfortable to be put on a pedestal. And people will give you their power without meaning to, you're such a great writer, you're this, you're that, I could never do that. And it's like, no, you could. And so I'm constantly having to give them back their power. You take that, you own what's yours. And constantly having to take myself off the pedestal as well.
Which is exhausting.
It's very exhausting. And so if, just looping this back to intuition, if I didn't have this relationship with myself of being able to tune into my energy, then I wouldn't know how important it is to have firm boundaries to go back within myself and take care of myself. I was sharing with you just before we hit record on this, that when I published that letter, I immediately got sick. So I had a burning in my womb, which is my sacral chakra. I had, sacral. I had like gas in my stomach, which was my solar plexus. I immediately got a sore throat in my throat chakra and had an intense headache here in my third eye chakra. And that was, looking back in hindsight, the effect of sending this, what felt like a huge tidal seismic wave out into the universe, not knowing that that was what it was going to be, but that
energetically you knew that that's what it was. So
my body knew. I didn't know. My body knew. And so I was like in a dark room, taking painkillers, like trying to Reiki myself. Nothing was working. And I said, at this point, I need help. And I called on two of my sisters and I'm like, please send me energy, help me, hold the space for me, pray for me, support me through this. And that was very much from listening to my intuition. And so each day as I was, receiving this bombardment of like messages and private messages and emails and likes and shares and comments and all kinds of things, some good, some not nice at all. I realized I have to have boundaries. Otherwise I'm not going to make it through the week. I'm going to get very, very sick. And so rather than taking this opportunity and saying, well, this is a way to now like make myself a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like zhuzh myself up and make myself like, I'm the new one. I actually was like retreating. Yeah. I was like, I need to like go inside. And I was very selective over responding to people, liking things that people had shared, because I was like, every time I do that, I really want to be able to respond to everyone, to say thank you and to give my gratitude and to show up and to really like be there for them. But I need to be there for me first. And I think, going back to what I was saying about cultivating that kind of mother-child relationship with yourself, that was my inner mother saying, no, we need to close up the boundaries here because, you did something big. Yeah. And you need to retreat now. You need to rest. You need to sleep. You need to limit your interaction with people. When you feel better, when you feel more in your body, you can go back out into the world. And even then, you're going to have to go out and come back in again.
Yes. Yeah. Right? Just peek your head out and then.
Yeah. You're going to have that ebb and flow. And so I'm like so committed to myself, and I'm so committed to being of service to others, that I know that having good self-care and having good boundaries means I can do that. Yeah. I can't be of service if I'm burnt out. I can't be with my family if I'm burnt out. I can't be happy and feel joy if I'm burnt out. And so having those boundaries, and Danielle Laporte has this truth bomb that I love, and it's, big, open heart, big fucking fence.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And so that's my philosophy, is that I'm here. I am full of compassion. I want to connect with you all. I love you all. And I have to have a big fucking fence. Because if I give everything of myself to you, then I will have nothing left for me, and I will have nothing left to give you sustainably in the future.
And I just want to reflect back to you too, Layla, that you're modeling very, very powerfully and very strongly what it is to take care of yourself and what it means to love yourself, and also to trust yourself enough, because it could be really easy to, have all of this, adoration and fanfare coming in, and to be like, I need to do something with this because otherwise I'll miss out, or like there's these opportunities that won't come back if I'm not like capitalizing on them right now. But having developed enough of your self-trust muscles to be like, I know that this will unfold in exactly the way it's meant to, when it's meant to unfold to the next level. I can take care of myself in the meantime.
Yeah, definitely. I had to make a number of decisions for exactly that. I was receiving a lot of comments. There's maybe 300, 400 comments that were on this letter. And because I had never received that many notifications, I had my comments on my website set up that I would receive a notification for every single comment.
Oh my goodness.
And I didn't know that it would be that many. So I was reading them all. Yeah. And then what I quickly began to notice is sometimes I'll open it up and it will be a beautiful, loving message. And sometimes I'll open it up and it will be just slime, just horrible. And so my inbox became this like ticking time bomb where I didn't know what I was going to get every time I opened it up. And so, I received the intuition to disable comments on my blog. And there was that ego part of me that was like, well, if I disable it, you know, are people still going to come and visit, or are they going to read it, or are they going to care? And it was like, it doesn't matter. Like, my self-care matters more than this, you know. So I disabled them. The funny thing is, people then started emailing me directly through the contact form on the website, still with those mean messages, some nice, but still with those mean messages. I'm like, oh my God, why? And I realized I need to bring on an assistant to be my gatekeeper.
Yeah.
You know, I said to her, you know, I need you to be the one to filter these messages for me, because I can't subject to myself. I'm a highly sensitive person. Yeah. I can't subject myself to surprise, it's flowers, or surprise, it's poop, you know? Yeah. I couldn't put that myself through that. And then the other thing that I did was, before I hit publish on that letter, I run a paid membership community, and I had taken it offline just before publishing it because I was making some changes in the back end. And I was planning on putting it back online after the letter, thinking, you know, it's just a letter. Yeah. No big deal. I start noticing this influx of people coming in, and I realized, if I put this online, and because it's highly affordable, it's a low cost per month, people are going to flood in to this community, and I'm not going to be able to hold space for them because I don't even know where I am right now. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I could have made a lot of money in those first few days, and I chose not to, because it would have felt completely out of integrity for me to say, come in, but I'm not here because I don't even know what planet I'm on right now. And I realized, you know, I needed to bring someone into that community to help me hold the space, because it is going to grow. Mm-hmm. And until I had done that, that was only the time when I'm like, now I will open the doors up again. Mm-hmm. So you have to trust yourself. You know, sometimes the thing that seems like the smartest thing to do, or the most the most
business savvy thing to do.
Yeah, like the most savvy thing to do isn't necessarily the best thing for you. Mm-hmm. And you have to trust that. And you have to trust that you don't have to catch them. You don't have to catch people or trick them, or if they're supposed to be on this journey with you, they will be on the journey with you. And it's okay if you didn't get them right now, you know.
Get them. Yeah. Even that just sounds like
that kind of
sounds
language,
gross.
Right? Yeah. And that's why I was like, I'm not opening the doors to this, because that's exactly how it's going to feel. Mm-hmm. I didn't want people to feel like, because people who don't necessarily know me, and I saw this happen last year, a lot of people who didn't know me assumed that I'd written the article that I wrote to just antagonize things so that I could make money.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do. And in fact, when I published last year's article, I had no services on my website.
There's nothing.
There's nothing to buy. I missed out, you know? And so, no, it's not connected to that at all. But yeah, it really did have to feel in integrity for me. And I feel like my intuition is that place where I can check in and say, does this feel true? Does this feel right? Does this feel aligned? And I follow it, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it means I lose out.
Yeah. And just quickly, for when you get that, how does alignment feel for you? Or how does resonance and being in integrity, what does that feel like in your body compared to something that doesn't feel right?
I feel like if I feel like I need to over-explain things, then it doesn't feel right. But if I feel like if someone came and challenged me on it, and I didn't get like, oh, you know, they caught me.
Triggered,
then I'm fine. You know, like I'm at a place now where if someone said, well, you've just like opened the doors to your sisterhood because you got a huge influx of people, you want to make money. And I'm like, no, I know that's not true. So I don't feel triggered. That can bounce off. But if I know if I was challenged on something, I felt a need to defend, then I know this is off.
Mm-hmm. That's a wonderful way to explain it, and just a really succinct way for whoever is watching or listening to this to be able to check in with themselves and be like, am I needing to justify something, or am I like going
Yeah.
about like going out of my way to have to like over explain or rationalize why I'm doing something. That's a really simple way to just check in and be like, am I triggered by this?
Yeah. Or does it just
provocation?
bounce off me? You know, if it just bounces off and it's like, well, that's their truth, it's not my truth, then I know that's because I'm in my truth. But if I'm like, no, but please, you need to understand, you know,
I didn't mean it that way. Yeah.
Then I'm like, something still isn't right here.
Yeah. And then that can just take time, right? To just go back and just feel into it, you know, what does feel right or what does feel a little better than this. Mm-hmm. And being okay with just like you did, just taking it off completely until you have that inner resonance with it.
Yeah. Because I know that, you know, and going back to that conversation around self-trust, because I work on my self-trust, when something comes up and it's an odd situation and I don't know what to do, if I can just tune in and whatever instructions I'm given, I know that as long as I take the action that I'm being asked to take, everything will be okay. In the long run, everything will work out.
Yeah.
Whereas if I try and like still make it work the way I think it should work, then that's where I get into trouble with myself.
Totally, me too.
Yeah.
When you're trying to like kind of muscle your way through it and be like, no, it's good.
Yeah. It's fine. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
I got this.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I just wanted to say quickly too about that, listening to your higher self and taking action on whatever insights you're receiving. It's been my experience that, because I feel with my higher self, it's like a best friend. And if your best friend was constantly like giving you guidance or giving you advice and you like ignored it all the time, your best friend wouldn't necessarily be likely to like give you the big insight right away. You'd have to like start small again, right? Yeah. And to kind of demonstrate that you have a willingness to first of all hear it and receive it, and then to do something with it. So I think in my own experience, and also a lot of the people that I worked with before, there was an expectation that intuition was going to be this like mega lightning bolt, that like that's what you were waiting for, was the epiphany to end all epiphanies. But if you hadn't already been taking those breadcrumbs and doing something with each individual breadcrumb, it's like your higher self's like, I ain't sending you no lightning bolt.
No. and not because your higher self doesn't love you or is trying to punish you, but your higher self has your highest good in mind. And so your highest good is to be able to cultivate a relationship with yourself where it's a solid relationship, where even when you took the advice that your intuition gave you and it didn't work out the way that you think it should have worked out, you don't then go, oh, I'll never trust you again because it's solid. You're like, okay,
curse you,
it didn't, there's something else here that I'm missing, or something else that I don't yet have the information to. So it is very much like when you're cultivating a relationship with a real life person, they're not going to come and tell you their like deep secrets from the get-go. You really need to build trust and demonstrate that you are in it for the long run, that they are safe with you. And you're just demonstrating that you're safe with yourself. Every time you listen to yourself and take the action, you're demonstrating to yourself that you can trust yourself. And so people will say to me things like, well, you seem like really like you're just like a queen in your business, like you have like this real energy of sovereignty. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not something that is special about me. That's something I've really had to work on and really had to continuously devote myself to, where I'm in a place now where I recognize permission only comes from within. And so permission to listen, to hear, to follow through, that only comes from within. And the more I give myself permission, the more I listen, the more I take action, the bigger the breadcrumbs become. They're not breadcrumbs anymore.
They're loaves.
They're like, yeah, they're like, here, and this is your next thing, right?
Yeah.
And you're ready for it because you can take it on, because you have taken on all the other things that you thought were like, oh my God, how can I do that? And you did it and they worked out. So it is this beautiful relationship that needs to be cultivated. There's something else that I'm really being called to say, which is that I know we're talking a lot about the higher self, and even that can sometimes feel like, oh, this higher self that I can't see.
Yeah.
And my higher self also speaks a lot to me through my body. So, I talked about the chakras earlier and these different feelings I was feeling, but I have found it really helpful, especially when I'm not feeling okay, to lie down and to ask my body to tell me where it hurts.
Yeah.
Where do I not feel like okay? Where do I feel like a feeling of like scrambled energy?
Yeah.
And just be quiet and wait for the feeling to arise. And then I just send energy to that, or I just listen to it and say, what's wrong? What happened? Why are you not feeling okay right now? What can I give you? What do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a way to kind of make it more
tangible.
Where it's not like I'm waiting for a voice outside of me to speak to me, but it's actually like our body is this amazing, it's this amazing kind of like, I don't know, it's speaking to us all the time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for bringing that up too, because the whole point of this series is to bring it back down to earth. And even though we all have a higher self, it can still sometimes feel like, oh, I'm not mystical enough to have a higher self, or
Right.
like I'm not intuitive or perceptive enough to be able to communicate with this shimmering being that stands behind me and watches over me. So bringing it back down into the body, everyone has a body, and everyone can just lie down and say, where does it hurt? Or where am I not feeling good? Or where am I feeling good? And then just paying attention to how the body communicates with you.
Yeah. And I feel like we, have like this, again, going back to like this feeling of it needs to be this big mystical experience, but actually it doesn't. Your body is extremely mystical, extremely. If you can recognize that, then you can start to slow things down. Like we're always in this rush to get somewhere. Okay, I want the insights, I want the downloads, I want the thing. Yeah. And it's actually in the slowing down and the waiting and the listening and the paying attention and then not pushing it, that we begin to hear and we begin to notice and we begin to feel, and then we begin to cultivate this conversation.
Thank you so much for everything that you've shared in this conversation. I could literally speak to you for 10 hours, but I know you've also been on the phone all day today. that I'm lucky to even have the time we've had together. But I really want to honor you and to just thank you so much for sharing your experiences and sharing your wisdom with everyone. And if people want to learn more about you or find you online, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, thank you so much, honey. This has been such a good conversation. I actually feel not drained, but filled up. So for everyone who's listening, I'm an introvert and this is my 4th call of the day. And I should be in pieces right now. And I'm actually feeling very soul nourished from this conversation. So thank you. You can find me at wildmysticwoman.com, which is my temple online. That's where everything lives. But where you'll find me if you kind of want to follow with me day to day, my day-to-day stuff, I love Instagram. I'm always on Instagram and I share a lot there. So yeah, connect with me there as well.
Perfect. Thank you again, Layla. I also feel very soul nourished after having this conversation with you. And I just know that everything that we talked about in this conversation is going to be nourishing to everyone who encounters it too. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.